Yo, 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 and welcome back to Creeps and Crimes
Podcast.
I'm Taylar.
I'm Morgan. Happy Thursday. Happy season 5. And happy episode 210.
210 season 5. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
wow.
Do you love the stew? Did you love the trailer? Do you love the merch that's out today?
Yeah, the merch should be dropping today.
Hopefully.
It should be. So if you haven't already, go over to our Instagram. That's where we'll drop it and like do all the launch for it and everything. We're recording this on Tuesday, October 1st. So we're like in the middle of the hype. We just approved the final round of merch. So, and it's ready to go. We just have to, we're just waiting because we're bitches.
And we're last minute, Nelly.
Last minute.
We were just burned so bad by merch that we were like, nah.
We don't give a shit.
Nah.
Whatever.
Not right now.
We'll think about it. And then y'all are like, merch. And our manager, Maggie, is like, merch.
We are bad. It's back. We're back.
We're back, baby.
We're so excited to go into year 5 with you guys.
Yeah. And we just got our little bitty cutesy sign up. We didn't want to go neon, so we went with this.
We didn't want to go neon. The whole room is neon instead.
We didn't want to go neon sign. We wanted to go neon accent. And so this is where we are. I did rip the drywall off, if you're wondering what that little white scratch is.
I doubt they can see it.
I doubt you can see it, but just in case, on the off chance that someone does, specifically my mother.
100%.
That is because I ripped the drywall off, trying to get the Joanne letters off, and I didn't have it in me. I spackled it, put the little tape over it, spackled it, moved on.
We got curtains up both sides.
Curtains up.
We've added a bar cart.
You can't see it.
You can't see it.
But when we finish Morgan's side, her corner,
and we go to the 3-pointer.
And my corner, we're gonna go 3 porn cameras.
3 pornography cameras in this studio.
This is so getting demonetized on YouTube.
In a couple weeks.
Yep, right here, right now. This is what's happening. Guys, you guys have been so sweet.
So sweet.
So freaking sweet.
So loved.
I do too. I really do. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like a celebrity or something.
No. What made it for me today was the nails.
Andrea, the nails.
I walked over to just a random coworker.
It's called Polish or Perish. Yeah.
Random coworker who I hardly talk to. I said, I think this means I made it. They're like, what? Made what? I'm like made it.
Like it, you know what I mean?
They're like, oh, you
live.
made the nails? I'm like,
no, bitch.
I made it, bitch.
I made it.
And I'm like, in fucking hair flip.
Flip right now. Yeah, let me see where we're at. Let me see. We haven't looked at the comments in a minute because we've been hanging up curtains and hanging up the sign, talking shit. You know how we do. Well, it's time that I post the TBB announcement because we did just hit 13K on the views for the trailer.
Mama. And that's a 7-minute video.
It's a 7-minute video, queen.
Or the trailer.
Yeah.
Trailer.
Yeah, the real thing.
Nice.
The whole thing.
We do want to talk about what the fuck is going on here.
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about Hurricane Helene.
To start.
Yeah, we're okay. Thank you so much to everyone that continues to ask and like checks in on us. Yes, we are 100% okay. Luckily, Knoxville did not get the initial hit. We had high winds, we had so much rain, but thankfully, just because of the way this city is and it's known for flooding, there was enough that's gone in that it prevented bad flooding and bad damage. And the wind was only I think it was like 40 mile an hour at one point.
Yeah, and it literally, if you were to watch it on the radar, it just curved right above us.
Yeah, we just got like the outer edges.
Like it started in Atlanta, it just literally circled around us in an attic.
It was like perfect the way that it went around us, and then it sat over Asheville. Now Appalachia, Northeast, Tennessee, up into North Carolina, as you guys have seen on the news, like got fucking wrecked. It's so upsetting.
Yeah, as of now, Tuesday, October 1st, I read an article that there's still 600 people missing. Over like 120 have been found deceased.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
I
actually
bad.
feel like the media is not showing.
No, it's not. It's
what they need to be showing, and
it's
how
crazy
bad it really is.
Because like everything that they're covering is like world news, of course, but like this is what's happening right now. Guys, these are not just like bumfuck nowhere roads either. This is I-40.
Yeah.
And these are major like trucking routes. And then also we have the strike coming up. So like this.
They went on strike this morning.
Yeah, this morning. Yeah. And there's already been a shortage because of the lack of transportation to get here.
And to just put I-40, like in retrospect, I always hated driving that mountain road going into North Carolina because I would say to Aaron, I was like, it's so thin, so windy, and there's so many semis. So that just shows how much that road is used for transportation for truckers. It's fucking devastating. It's terrible. It's sad. It's horrific.
Terrible. We've been trying to kind of nail down like 2 different links that we can put out for people to give donations that are for like the entire Appalachian region that's been affected by this. And specifically we say Appalachian because like the areas that have been affected that they're not publicly showing. The reason why they're not publicly showing them is because these are Appalachian cities. These are extremely poor, really forgotten about towns and people that already have very little to nothing. Flood insurance is not mandatory and it's not affordable for the majority of the people that are there. And I mean, this is devastating.
And you're protected by the mountains. No one in a million. You know how many times Eastern Tennessee gets flash flood warnings?
All the time.
Literally, probably at least once a month.
We're in the fucking valley.
And everyone's like, oh, okay, flash flood. Nobody expected a flash flood of a 15-foot wall of rushing water followed by mudslides and trees. Like it, no one was expecting that.
And we're already extremely prone because of the amount of bodies of water that are in this area for sinkholes all the time. I mean, hell, our freshman year, they built up a whole dorm. They finished it. They were a week away from opening it and it goes into a sinkhole.
Yeah.
At the University of Tennessee, just to give you some little insight into what this area is like. I mean, this is devastating what has happened. So y'all just send, if you don't have money that you can donate to a foundation that's been, you know, vetted, which is what we've been trying to do. Yeah. I haven't had much luck.
Yeah, I know TEMA kind of cracked down a lot. Tennessee's Emergency Medical Agency or something, Response Agency. I'm not sure what it stands for, but I know they really cracked down. They don't necessarily want any sort of donation at this time. Specifically just monetary donation. I know they've restricted a lot of people coming in because there is a lot of tourists going in just to see destruction and damage. To see. And
like, you know, I understand that we have to be able to observe and like understand and learn from natural disasters like this, but like when you have like the storm hunter amateur motherfuckers that are trying to get on YouTube and then get a viral clip, like that is so insensitive. Like people just lost everything. Everything.
Keep them in your prayers, thoughts and prayers if you do that sort of thing, and just try to remember the situation whenever it leaves the media. And
it's already left the media, and that's what's terrifying. Like by the time you guys are listening to us, like, who knows? Today we're starting off season 5 with a little drinky poos. We've had some day. You know, we've had
a fun day.
It was a really fun day, and it was like a lot of like
a reward drink,
a rewarding thing. You know, it was like we've worked so hard. Let's take a deep breath.
So I have like straight gin because I was thinking Taylor was going to make like a normal drink. So I was like, oh, just make me anything with gin. I'm fine with that. Tell me why this is gin with a splash of cranberry. Literally. She was like, oh yeah, I'm trying to get really fucked up tonight. I'm like, whoa, it's Tuesday night. She's ready to go.
I'm ready to go. Well, it's just I'm so excited to be finally here in season 5. Like I was so excited for you guys to see this morning. We were so nervous right before we dropped the trailer. But today's just been like go, post, read, comment, like. Analytics. Like,
and they're back, bitches.
And they're back.
Finally on a good platform.
I don't know if we told public, but we transferred platforms again. Last week. In the middle of all of this.
Guys, the world, like the logistics of Creeps and Crimes for the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe?
A month was like crashing and burning. Like
falling apart, see, like,
crumbling.
Like have you ever seen those visions of people like zooming into their head and looking at like the office in the brain?
Yep.
And it's like on fire and the person outside is just like, la, la, la. That's what was going on. That was what our team was dealing with behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Like, and like trying to get our attention too. And we're like, hey guys, do you like this logo or this logo? Me and Taylor are like, oh, let's cut the wall. Let's paint. Let's
do this.
We absolutely zoned out, and thank God we did, because it fixed itself.
We
did.
It did not fix itself. We had to like manhandle it in the end, but it was only because it got to the point where it was like code red. Yeah. Code red. And we were like, I mean, guys, it's really not that hard. Like,
we're like,
just
I mean,
move
I
it.
don't understand.
Move it. We're recording a 12-hour overnight
We're
shot.
literally building a wall.
We're literally using a jigsaw right now. Could you Call us back later.
We're telepathically building this table.
But anyways, guys, we tried to blow it out the water with the cases because, we just we had a little hiatus.
And I was like really excited for my case today.
Yeah.
Turns out it's a crime.
So yeah.
Anyway,
my case came to me in the weirdest way, which I'll get to when we get to it, but hit him with it.
If you're driving, throw that shit on cruise control.
If you got a glass, pour that shit up.
And let's get creepy.
Okay, Morgie Poo, what do you another thing, if you haven't listened to the Bestie Bonus, we didn't even talk about the fucking Bestie Bonus.
On Tuesdays, every Tuesday.
Yeah. If you haven't listened to that already, we talked about how weird we feel in the studio. I still feel weird.
I do too. Not gonna lie, I feel very big girl.
I feel like we're on somebody else's podcast. You know what I mean?
It hasn't sunk in yet.
No, it hasn't
but it looked good.
But it looks great. I can't stop looking at it. Okay, Morgan, what do you have for us today?
So
first case of season 5.
I am covering the Chinatown, San Francisco ghost marriage.
Ooh.
And so I got this actually from a new Hulu show. It's called Out There: Crimes of Paranormal or Paranormal Crimes.
Yeah.
Crimes of Paranormal, I think. And it's literally the trifecta of our podcast. So whoever created that show, sorry, but
you did that for us. Thank you.
You did that for us, and you're probably a big fan. So
yeah, just thinking about it.
Thanks for being our fan. Okay, so first I'm going to dive into the history of Chinatown. So Chinatown is located in downtown San Francisco, and it covers about 24 square blocks. In the 1850s, there was a large number of Chinese pioneers that began immigrating to the San Francisco area after hearing of the big money-making California gold rush and the first transcontinental railroad. These early immigrants settled near Portsmouth Square around DuPont Street. Need I remind anyone? Probably not, but this was racist America. Circa late 1800s, early 1900s, therefore they were not met with open arms. Locals were wary of their intentions coming to their city, and they were known as the, quote, China Boys.
Oh my God.
By 1880, the settlement grew and Chinese owned and operated establishments were booming around this particular area of DuPont Street. This area was the one region deeded by the city government that allowed Chinese people to inherit and inhabit dwellings within the city. So they were really restricted to the area of where they could own a restaurant, own a shop, own a house, etc. The majority of these restaurant owners, shopkeepers were predominantly Hosanese and male. Majority of this region was just men. In 1851, the reported Chinese population in the state of California, the entire state, was about 12,000 men and fewer than 10 women.
Yeah. Oh my God. I was expecting 10. You're going to keep going. No,
10.
1 0.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Wow.
Many hoped to strike it rich during the gold rush, send money back home to their families, or themselves move back home to their families, or to bring the families to America. But this changed rather quickly because when you have a lot of men put together, testosterone is built up. And that means one thing: sex.
Oh, I was going to say fights.
Fights and crime,
sex.
Fights and sex,
Yeah.
literally. During the late period of the gold rush, sexual businesses started in Chinatown. This became a major prostitution enterprise that was raised by the criminal gang group called the Tong, where they would import unmarried Chinese women to San Francisco.
Oh.
I'm assuming against their will.
Yeah.
During the 1870s to 1880s, the population of Chinese sex workers in Chinatown grew rapidly to more than 1,800 and accounted for 70% of the total Chinese female population. And this industry grew. By the end of the 1800s, Chinatown's reputation as a prostitution hub became a tourist destination for white men. And as this industry grew, these visitors became white middle-class men, and then upper middle-class men, and then big dog white politicians themselves. Ooh. Which caused this transformation for the industry to become a reputable entertainment industry. But this is a fun fact, not so at all fun fact that I learned while researching into this.
A fucked up fact.
A fucked up fact. During this time, Chinese immigrants were extremely harassed by law officials, and many Chinese sex workers were banned from being out in the public. because this had become such an issue for the state, even though they were their main source of fucking income.
Right.
Like you were the ones giving them business. The state of California wanted to restrict all immigration of Chinese sex workers. So in 1875, the United States Congress passed a law called the Page Law, which was the first major legal restriction that prohibited the immigration of Chinese, Japanese, and Mongolian women into America. No females allowed.
That's
so fucked up.
I mean, I guess
but
if
you're
you're trying to target sex trafficking, but like, why limit it? But and here's another thing. If we've learned anything in the last 10 years from being able to actually hear from sex workers, because it's not as taboo anymore and we're able to learn and stuff. What we learn about situations like this is that it's not necessarily that the women were taken against their will. It's that they were just like, all right, I'm just going to have to knuckle and buckle until I have the money to get out and like go save myself. So now it's like they're not allowed to be in public, and I'm sure there was racial profiling. Anyone that was a Chinese, Japanese, Mongolian woman out in public, I'm sure was being fucking harassed, being like, are you a sex worker? Are you a sex worker?
Right. You saw a female Chinese woman, you're gonna immediately assume prostitution.
Exactly. And
like,
so
that's what they were doing. But this really did restrict everyone family that wanted to come over, daughters, grandmothers, mothers. And so in 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act declared that no more skilled or unskilled immigrants would be allowed to enter the country, which meant that many Chinese and Chinese Americans could not have families in America because their wives and children were prohibited to immigrate. Exceptions were in fact granted, of course, to the wives and the children of very wealthy I'm sure Chinese
like the top
immigrants.
Dogs that owned the majority of the things that these politicians are coming to be a part of.
All while during this time, the public began accusing any sort of STD that was going around from coming from Chinese sex workers. And when this happened, it launched this period of extreme violence in Chinatown, and this was known as the Tong Wars. There was 20 to 30 known like wealthy people that ran this really highly profitable gambling houses, brothels, opium dens, and slave trade enterprises in Chinatown, San Francisco. And because of the lack of government control in the Chinatown area, the criminal behavior really started to pick up. It intensified, and it made it a very dangerous area for tourists to enter into. This went on for years and years until the police began to crack down and actually enforce this area as a part of San Francisco, because at the time they were just like, they're on their own. Like, police wouldn't go. They would go to pay for sex, but they wouldn't go, and so they weren't protecting anybody.
Right. They weren't responding to any calls for help.
Yeah. Today in Chinatown, San Francisco, there are 2 hospitals, numerous churches, post office, as well as many other infrastructures, which also kind of shows that they kind of still were on their own for majority of the time. I mean, you have your own hospital, your own post office.
You have 2 post offices. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Recent immigrants, many of whom are elderly, will opt to live in Chinatown because of the availability of affordable housing and their familiarity with the culture that surrounds them. But even today, San Francisco's Chinatown faces a struggle to survive because majority of the people that live in not just San Francisco, but Chinatowns across the United States are elderly people. The new generation of younger ethnic Chinese people are preferring to live in other areas rather than urban Chinatowns. So they're kind of struggling across America. San Francisco's Chinatown stands out from the rest because, well, it has a bit of a paranormal secret to it.
Oh.
And this secret is that there's spirits everywhere. It's actually no fucking secret at all.
Oh my God.
So spirits in the Chinese religion. In Chinese culture, people believe that when someone dies, they have 2 parts to their soul. One part is called the Han, and it goes to the afterlife and connects with the spiritual world. The other part of your soul, called the Po, stays with the body. This idea helps explain what happens after death. And as we know, ancestors are really important in Chinese culture. People honor their ancestors by doing special rituals, and ghosts are seen as spirits of people who may not have been properly honored when they died. So sometimes these ghosts can be angry or they can cause problems for the living. Today, many ghost stories, like, it's still around, but not so much. And many ghost stories are really told to just teach lessons about like behaving well and respecting others. For example, some stories will show you that if you don't take care of your ancestors, you're going to have a ghost that's going to be causing you trouble. Like, your ancestors going to haunt the fuck out of you.
Now it's lore,
Stories about ghosts are common in Chinese culture, and they often mostly carry a moral message reflecting problems or behaviors in society. There's something called the Hungry Ghost Festival, known as Zhangyan Jai. I think I literally have the pronunciation. Don't come at me. Zhongyang, and it's a traditional Chinese festival that's celebrated on the 15th day of the 7th lunar month. The Hungry Ghost Festival is a time of remembrance, community connection, and it really emphasizes the importance of ancestral respect in Chinese culture. During this time, it is believed that the gates of the underworld open, allowing spirits, any and all spirits, but particularly those of deceased ancestors and forgotten souls, to roam the earth.
So it's like kind of similar to
Day of the Dead.
Yeah, was it called Dia de los Muertos?
Dia de los Muertos.
Muertos, yeah.
Yeah, it's something like that, I think.
Someone's literally like,
I think it's Dia de los Muertos.
I think
don't
so,
know.
right?
I don't know. So in preparation for the Hungry Ghost Festival, people will prepare offerings to appease these wandering spirits. And this is something that you'll constantly see. They give like wealth at these offerings. Like this is cash, this is jewelry, anything that holds any sort of value goes into these offerings. So this includes food, also incense, real money, like paper money, and then these are placed on altars or at grave sites. Families will also burn joss paper, and this represents like material goods for the deceased in the afterlife. So obtaining ancestral status is not an easy task in Chinese culture. You have to live a virtuous life. You have to contribute positively to society. You have to participate in festivals and rituals like the Hungry Ghost Festival, as well as other cultural traditions. You have to maintain remembrance. So in order for you to get granted that ancestral status, your family that is living here on earth has to continue to honor you and go to these altars and go to the Hungry Ghost Festival and give you monetary value at these altars.
So it's not just you, it's a collective effort.
It's a collective effort. I don't know why I can't talk. Yes, it's a collective effort. But most importantly, you have to contribute and maintain the family lineage, aka you have to get married and you have to have children.
Oof.
This becomes an issue when, for example, you have a child die, but you want them to reach ancestral status, yet they had no children and they weren't married because they were 5, they were 6, they were 7. Instances like this result in a ghost marriage ritual.
Okay.
So ghost marriage, known as Minghan in Chinese culture, refers to a practice where one person marries a deceased individual. Now, this can be as living person marries a dead person or dead person marries a dead person by the families.
Okay.
This custom is rooted in beliefs about the afterlife, ancestral respect, and the continuation of family lineage. It's a whole sole purpose of ghost marriages is to grant that person ancestral status.
Okay.
So they have to be married. Family lineage. Important. In many cases, ghost marriages are performed to ensure that a deceased person is not left alone in the afterlife or to fulfill obligations, especially if they die unmarried. The practice can involve elaborate ceremonies, including rituals that will include lots of offerings and symbolic actions to honor those that have died. So families do this to grant their deceased ancestral status by maintaining their lineage continuity. And sometimes some families feel this as a social obligation as well, because there's a superstition that this can bring good luck and remove bad energy, sick, poor, etc. from the living. So basically, if you have someone in your family line that died unmarried, a lot of the times these are the roaming ghosts, and they're going to come to you and they're going to haunt you. They're going to make you sick. They're going to attach themselves to you until you give them what they want, which is
marriage.
Ghost marriage.
Right. So they can level up.
And while this doesn't happen as often today, it still is done by a few via ritual. So these rituals will start out with preparation. The family of the deceased will often seek suitable partners by consulting matchmakers, shamans, etc. Or they go out on their own and they look for a family that also lost somebody. And then a formal ceremony is conducted, which may include offerings, prayers, rituals to honor both the living and the deceased. These can involve burning incense, making food offerings, and sometimes a physical representation of the bride or the groom, like a doll or a piece of jewelry.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Yeah, yes, they do that. And sometimes also a body.
Like a dead body?
Like a dead body.
Okay.
So I actually don't talk about that in this, but there was a case, maybe you could cover it if you ever wanted to, but this guy killed 3 women and sold them off for ghost marriages.
Oh my God, Morgan.
Yeah. And there was like a whole like black market like ordeal about bodies and ghost marriages. But I wasn't going to get into that today.
We need to just have they just need to publicly do a statement that, hey, talk to gods. They said,
don't do that.
NBD, A doll would suffice.
Doll's good.
Doll's totally fine.
Doll is good.
Piece of jewelry, a picture.
Great.
Totally fine.
Just something.
Yeah. We could get on Canva.
Not a body.
We could put a wedding dress. We could put a tux. We could blow it up into a big poster and carry it down.
Whatever you need, just not the body.
Need the body, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Respectfully.
And in some cases, the deceased belongings or symbolic items from the living partner will be buried like with them to signify their union. So they'll go and like bury next to the gravesite.
Yeah.
Not all ghost marriages, like I said, are between the living and the dead. As a matter of fact, majority of them are from two dead souls. So for example, if you lose your daughter when she's 5 years old, your matchmaker is going to try to find a family who also lost a son around that same age. And there will be a marriage to continue lineage in the afterlife between those two, as long as both families agree. That's what they're both seeking.
Consent, yes.
Consent, and it happens. It also is considered shameful to be parents of an unwed daughter, as this can shun you from society. So this is why a lot of people push for ghost marriages. And on the other side, for men, marriages are performed for the purpose of carrying the family's lineage, because men are most responsible for that. So you're shamed, you're shunned if your daughter's not married, and your son's not going to be an ancestor if he's not married.
Right.
But majority of the time, ghost marriages are performed because family members of deceased unmarried people will often experience dreams or hauntings for the spirits of anybody that is desired to be married.
Yeah, it's like, so it's such a double-edged sword, because I don't want to be disrespectful to this culture and this practice, and I definitely don't want to be disrespectful from the other side of it, where it's like, if that's a piece of grieving and you've got this like societal pressure.
Right.
The perfect example is, for me, being born and raised a Christian, being a Christian, it's like, maybe if I had a child and the child passed away before I was able to get the child dedicated, that would really weigh on me. I would be like, even though I don't know how much, I don't want to put,
Could we get a blessing?
like, yeah, like it
Could
would
we
just
get
like
someone
nag
here?
at me. And so like, to me, that's what I'm equating it to, to allow me to like understand.
Kind of what I was thinking too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just like a rite of passage into the afterlife, and like being able to have a peaceful and restful afterlife. Yeah,
exactly. So these spirits, these roaming ones that are haunting in the dreams or in real life, making people sick, when they do this, it's proof to the family members or to whoever they're doing it to for their desire to be married. Now, sometimes these hauntings can come from spirits who just decide to attach themselves to unmarried people, and the threat of death comes with this, which we will talk about, as they have chosen that this is the person that they want to marry, and therefore will cause them to be dead to make this happen.
Oh no.
So let's go back to San Francisco. On November 10th of 2012, Susan Wan was walking the market streets of Chinatown, San Francisco, when she was approached by a woman with a bandaged hand. According to San Francisco Weekly, the woman said, "Excuse me, do you know where I can find this great herbalist doctor, Dr. Chan?" And Susan told her she didn't know a Dr. Chan and she really wasn't familiar with that doctor. "Sorry, I can't help you. I'm going to continue walking through the market, getting my strawberries and my grapes and my fruit and my veggies.
Move on with my life."
And then that's when another woman approaches her from behind, claiming, "Oh, I know a Dr. Chan," and like kind of like puts herself into this conversation. She continues to then tell the woman with the bandaged hand that, "Oh yeah, I know Dr. Chan. He healed my mother of a stroke 3 years ago. I know him very well. Actually, are you looking for him? I can take you to him." She was like, "Actually, I am looking for him. Do you mind to take me to him?" And Susan was there and she was like, "Well, I'd like to go.
I want to know what's going on.
I want to know who Dr. Chan is. He sounds like,
Let's go,
a
girls.
great guy." So they're like, "Yeah, you should definitely come with us to meet this doctor." And Susan agreed. And she felt a connection to them. They spoke her language. They were both fellow immigrants from the Canton region of China. And they were generous enough to introduce her to this great doctor that cured somebody from a stroke.
Right.
And Susan just ultimately thought that Dr. Chan sounded like a man that was probably worth meeting and knowing.
Just having it in your network.
So the trio made their way out of the market. As they walked out, they talked about their families, and Susan's two new acquaintances asked her all sorts of questions. "How many children do you have? Where have you lived? How long have you been in America?" Just like they're familiarizing themselves with each other. And eventually they made their way to a middle-aged man that was standing on the sidewalk, and he introduced himself as Dr. Chan's grandson. He informed the lady like, "Oh, no, my my granddad, like, he's out of town right now, but you know, I'm actually also able to interact with the spiritual realm, so whatever you may need, I might be able to help you with. They're like, okay, yeah, sure. Well, as they're doing introductions, he quickly started to like focus his attention onto Susan. She was pretty impressed because almost immediately he knew how many children she had, how many people lived with her at home, where she was from, etc. And then pretty quickly he got serious and it got dark. He brought up that Susan recently had this bout of bad luck, which was accurate in Susan's life. But then he went on to explain that this, you know, wasn't bad luck, but this was an evil spirit and it had been following your family. It attached itself to your youngest son and it intends on bringing him into the afterlife so that it would no longer be alone.
Oh, God.
He then said to her, your son will die in a car accident within 3 days.
No.
Susan was sick to her fucking
stomach. I'd have thrown up.
She was like, okay, well, I'm thank God I ran into these women on these ladies on the street, and then into someone who could tell me this fate. But what the fuck?
What do I do?
The fate would be this cruel, so harsh. Like, I mean, I'm glad I know, but like
for the next 3 days, like I'm not putting him in the car.
And he tried to calm her down, and eventually told her, listen, I can help save your son. And they needed to perform a ritual, a ghost marriage ritual, and quick. They needed to marry this ghost off to someone else to let her son live. So Susan ran home, grabbed everything of value that she could think of, jumped on the bus, headed to the bank, drained her savings account, met the shaman that night in a vacant lot with the 2 other women there, with $47,000 cash in hand and every piece of valuable jewelry that she had ever accumulated. She put it all in one cloth bag and she handed him the bag with everything in it. And again, she wasn't paying this man. Like we said, like showing monetary value to the afterlife is something that appeases them.
Right.
So like,
it's like
that cash was coming back into her pocket.
An altar.
Like it's a lot, but like she's trying to show, and like also with ancestral, and I talk about this a little bit later on, but like the more money, the more likely it's successful.
Right.
The more value, chances are whatever ritual
it's
you're
got a higher
performing,
vibration. Yeah.
Yes.
I get it.
So the guy's holding the bag and he starts saying in Cantonese, ghosts will not follow your son will not die, your son will not be involved in a car accident, ghosts will not harm your son. And he would repeat these words over and over again. And then he told Susan to turn around and face the sun, like the actual sun. And he handed her a bottle of water to wash her face with, and she handed him the fabric bag, which he then passed along to the other women watching from a few feet away. And as Susan washed her face, he said to her, everything will be peaceful. He told her all will be safe. And the ceremony was over. The man returned the bag back to Susan, and while yes, it was over, she wasn't in the clear yet. She had to follow a couple directions to ensure that this process worked. Don't tell anyone about the ceremony. They don't like when you talk about it. Do not look back at us. When you walk away, you need to just go home, and do not open the bag until you get home.
All her money's gone, bitch.
Fail to comply any of these steps and your son's going to be dead.
Wow.
This ceremony will not work. He then traced a shape on her back, and the shape was for protection, he said, and they parted ways. She made her way back to the bus stop, and she was fighting tears the entire time, hoping that she did enough to save her son, while carrying her bag of $47,000 and every piece of valuable jewelry in there. Was this enough? Did she do it? Is this going to be successful? She got on the bus and she sat down, and she was startled when a police officer walked up to her and told her to get off the bus.
Oh, no.
He asked her to look in her bag, and that's when she saw that the only thing in there were apples and water bottles. She was scammed, robbed of everything she spent her entire life working towards. Beginning in March of 2012, the blessing scam reached Chinatown, San Francisco. Con artists that targeted elderly Cantonese women, exploiting them for their cultural beliefs and duty to protect their children. The scams worked because they zeroed in on belief. Like, this is what these people, these elderly people, are raised on.
That should terrify you to your core.
Warding off evil spirits is a major component of popular Chinese religion.
Mm-hmm.
And they targeted that.
Yep.
Assembling valuables for a blessing did not raise red flags for these people because currency plays an important role in their beliefs, and they didn't know that they were getting fucking scammed.
Yep.
So they're like, you need all my cash? Absolutely. I know it goes into an altar. Let me go get my cash. I'll be there tonight.
And the way that they set this up, like, oh, do you know? Oh, no, but I know. Oh,
Yeah.
we can go. Well, you should get to know him too. Like, oh, that is dirty as shit.
Yeah, it makes me sick.
That's sickening.
Like I said earlier, during the annual Hungry Ghost Festival, when the gates of the spiritual realm are said to open, people will leave these offerings of gold inside their homes for their ancestors, silvers outside for evil spirits, monetary value, cash, dollar bills. And when you give offerings to your ancestors, you're helping them live in the other realm. If you don't, they become hungry, poor, and eventually they're going to turn on their living family here on earth and they're going to stop protecting them. Basically, they believe that the ancestral realm is very similar to the living. Therefore, currency is required for a transaction with the spirits. And the greater the offering, the better the chances of winning the favors and the ritual being a success.
It's a lot of stress.
So in the Chinese culture, money's value extends beyond earth. The police got wind of the scam from the elderly's younger family members, who would eventually find out that all the jewelry and money is missing from their home, and their grandparents or parents would end up telling them why. And these younger people, they knew that this had scam written all over it, so they went and they turned it into the police. San Francisco Police Department had a victims list so large, over 100 people had been scammed by this ghost marriage blessing ritual.
Wow.
And the SFPD needed to do something about it. So they launched a public awareness campaign to educate people, which in turn brought to light that the scam was going on in all Chinatowns across the United States. According to SF Weekly, Kin Ying Wong, 60 years old, saw one of those public service announcements on the morning of November 10th, which is the same day that Susan was involved. She was hustling home from the farmer's market to gather all of her money, jewelry for a purification ceremony. She remembered the details of the scam and she saw the public announcement, and instead of going to where she needed to go for this ceremony with all of her belongings, she went to the Ingleside police station. At about that same time was when Susan was stopped for fruit in the market.
Wow.
SFPD officers decided that they were going to send out an 8-man surveillance team that would go and watch the market area and try to find who was doing this and see if Mrs. Wong could figure this out. So an hour after Wong met with the police, there was a police officer that sat in his undercover car parked in the lot east of the market, and he saw a scene unfold. A few feet from his car, he watched as a man stood behind a woman, rubbing her back with his hands. He then waved his hand over her. She walked away towards the bus stop without looking back. That was Susan Wong.
Wow.
A few seconds later, the man turned and walked towards the center of the market, and after a few paces, he broke into a sprint. This police officer followed the man from the lot. The man raced towards a taxi to which 3 other women were also running, aka his associates, and one of the women was carrying a black fabric bag. They basically barely slammed the doors of the taxi cab when the officer pulled up behind the car, siren blaring, while other officers were pulling in right behind him.
Yep.
They pulled the 4 suspects out of the taxi and detained them. And in the car's back seat, they found a fabric bag. Inside was $47,000 cash and a pile of jewelry. It was Susan's belongings. The foursome was booked and charged with grand theft and extortion, and 6 months later, the foursome became the first ghost scam suspects in the country to stand trial. These 4 were Ya-Cheng Li, Yanu Tan, Moody Wu, and Yonghai Zheng. But these were scam artists, if I need to remind you. So when trial came around, well, they were the actual victims, and they had a story to tell.
I'm loving
They
it.
were victims of human trafficking, coerced into committing the theft by crime bosses back in China who threatened to kill their families.
Okay, send us an email.
But this was all one giant lie. And they proved this by a recorded conversation between 3 of the 4 in the back of a taxi cab a couple days prior to their arrest, where they fabricated the entire story.
Boom.
The scam went on for about 15 months, and then ultimately San Francisco Police Department were able to really suppress it, make awareness out of it, and everyone knew don't fall for it.
Right.
In a weird way, it kind of brought Chinatown residents closer to those in the city because it was really the first time they felt that the city of San Francisco had their backs.
Oh, that makes me
And that is my case today.
Oh, that was really good.
And Susan got her money back.
Yeah, Susan got her money back. That's all that matters. Damn, dude. That is the dirtiest. Saying your child's going to die.
Yeah. In the episode that I watched on Hulu, they had like a list of everything. And it was like all the reports from people. And it was like, your son's going to die in a car accident in 3 days. And then it was like, your 12-month-old daughter is going to drown in the bathtub. And like, it was like things like that, like that they were telling people. And so this actually, there was people all over the United States that were arrested for this. It was a giant ring of fucking
that is like the
artists
lowest
that were
you
targeting
can go.
elderly people.
That's like
and their
truly.
religious fucking beliefs.
And you're using their belief systems as a way to control them, and targeting women, because women would do whatever it took to save their babies' lives, even if it was something that they half-ass believed in. If someone came up to me and said, Taylar, you are going to have a daughter and your daughter is going to die within 5 months if you don't go donate this, if you don't give an altar for $50,000, I would pull $50,000 out of an account. I don't even have a kid on earth, and I would do it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
My cat, if you said that.
Right. And this money's going back to you.
Yeah, I'm not thinking about it. You just want me to come and do a little ritual? Okay, fine, we'll do it.
You're praying over me. You're putting protection spells on my back.
Go and do it, whatever. Move on.
You have these two wonderful ladies that I met in the market.
Just by happenstance. Yeah.
Speak my language. Yeah. They're from the same region of China. So there was actually also, real quickly, a testimony of a woman who said how a ghost marriage has helped her. And she said that she had a miscarriage and she was really, really sick and no one could get to the bottom of it for years and years, and just a bout of bad luck. And she went to a shaman, and I do think they're called something else, but
I think you said it in the beginning.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Not anyway, a medicine person.
He was like, I can help you. He said, give me some time. I'm going to reach out to a matchmaker. We're going to find someone. I think I know how to fix this. He found a family who also lost a baby boy, and they did a ghost marriage, and she was healed.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I really cost her $50,000.
Yeah, it was just free.
Yeah.
It was just your time. That was all.
And she was like, and what was crazy was that she didn't even know that she had a miscarriage also. So he was like, you're sick because you have a daughter in the other realm that is desperate to be married.
Oh, that's crazy.
And she's on to you. She's upset. And you're not honoring her because you don't know.
You didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, that's very upsetting. I don't want anyone to think that has had a miscarriage that we're saying that you need to go.
Right.
Yeah,
I was just telling you a testimony
that was just a story
of a person
of someone else, and that's their belief system.
Ghost marriage,
right? That's their belief system,
religion.
and
yes,
that's their that's their story. I don't know, when you said that, for some reason I just felt like I needed to say that. So maybe whoever needed to hear that you don't need to do that. I was talking to you in my head right then. That was weird.
It's popping through.
That was crazy.
Anyway, that's all I got. I mean, it was paranormal, but it wasn't scary paranormal.
No, but really,
it was
though,
fucking sickening.
Well,
crime.
I didn't know about that.
And I know the history.
What makes us individual?
I know the history of Chinatown wasn't even relevant to my case at all. But I was just really taken aback by the story, and I felt like I needed to share what the fuck happened.
Everything. Well, no, it was
well, and it showed that the city was on your own kind of thing, and now it's 2012 where they're like, wow,
that was in the 1800s.
They really got our fucking backs now,
and it wasn't until 2012
later
that they were like, oh, they kind of don't mind us.
Yeah, they're actually protecting us.
Pulled up and helped us.
Yeah.
Wow. Damn, that's crazy, Morgan. Well, thanks so much for sharing. I loved it. That was a perfect trifecta.
Yeah.
It was like a perfect trifecta.
It's
beautiful.
Thanks.
Dirty scam.
Dirty fucking scam. Fuck those people.
But the story.
I think across the United States there was 45 people that were arrested.
I bet that was a big operation.
Never heard of it.
No, me either. Never once heard of that.
This was 2012.
Granted, in 2012, we probably wouldn't have learned that. Yeah. We probably wouldn't have had access to that information anyways. Okay, guys. Well, my turn.
You're up. What you got for us?
Case I have for you today. I'm going to up front let you know that it is unsolved.
Oh, I thought you were letting them know something else.
No, not letting them know anything else. Yeah. I'm going to let you know that it's unsolved.
Okay.
Anyways, this is the case of Leigh Occhi. So it's Thursday, August 27th, 1992, and it's somewhere before 7 a.m. as Vicki Felton gets up and starts getting ready for work at her home, which is located at 105 Honey Locust Drive in the city of Tupelo, Mississippi. Vicki woke up her 13-year-old daughter, Leigh, to let her know that she was about to head out for the day and reminding her that she needs to lock the doors, not let anyone in, and do not answer the phone, plus to be ready for her grandparents by the time they came to pick her up later that day for an open house at her middle school where Leigh would be starting 8th grade the following Monday. So it's on Thursday. She's starting 8th grade the following Monday. Vicki was pretty nervous about leaving Leigh at home alone because this was her first time ever doing it. But Tupelo, and specifically this area of town that they were located, was considered to be an incredibly safe city. And I really do mean that. Like, their crime rates were some of the lowest in the entire country at this point in time, which made Vicky feel a lot better about leaving her 13-year-old daughter at home alone for the first time. But we all know how nerve-wracking that would be for a newly single mother to allow for her daughter. So Vicky heads out to work at around 7:40 a.m. and it was a pretty stormy morning. And once Vicky got into work, was like sitting down with the radio, a message goes out to the public and lets them know that this was only the beginning of the storms, because Hurricane Andrew had shifted course and was headed straight for Tupelo. And as we know, when a hurricane comes this direction, it runs straight into the southern tornado alley, meaning the hurricane and tornadoes gods team up and work together to absolutely wreck everyone. Similar to what literally is happening / just happened here in the Southeast with Hurricane Helene. To put this in perspective for you, Helene has been categorized as a Cat 4 major hurricane, and Hurricane Andrew was a Cat 5 major hurricane and one of only 4 tropical cyclones to ever make landfall in the continental United States as a Cat 5.
Wow.
So as it went on land, it stayed a Cat 5 and didn't immediately die down into a tropical storm. By the time it hit Tupelo, it was like a high alert tropical storm, if that makes sense.
Okay.
As soon as Vicky hears this, her stomach drops for her 13-year-old little girl, Leigh, who's home alone, because not only is she home alone for the very first time, but she has this terrible fear of storms. It's like a phobia almost. It caused major anxiety for her, and for the first time ever, she's all by herself. So even though it had only been an hour since Vicky left, she picks up her office phone and she calls home to Leigh at around 8:30 a.m. Now, one of the rules that Leigh had to follow being at home alone by herself for the first time was that she was not allowed to answer the phone unless it was her mom calling. But it's 1992, so there's no caller ID. Have no fear though, Leigh and Vicky had this like little system they had come up with. Vicky would call, let the phone ring for 2 rings, and then hang up and call again, signaling to Leigh that it's your mama, you can answer,
right.
like
Pick
to call, this is our code, go ahead and answer it. So Vicky does this little system that they had agreed on, but Leigh doesn't answer. So Vicky tries again. No answer. And this was not like Leigh, and it worried Vicky enough that she told her boss, like, I'll be right back. Hops in her car, drives the 1.5 miles home to go check on her daughter. The entire drive, Vicky is kind of talking herself down. You know, like, she's fine. Maybe Leigh was just using the bathroom and has already tried to call me back on the office line, but, you know, I'm not there. Maybe she fell back asleep and didn't hear the phone ring. But as her house comes into view, Vicky's stomach flips because the garage door, which she had shut when she left, was now wide open and the motor light was on, meaning someone had just been in the garage minutes before. God. She throws her car into park, barely waiting for it to stop before she jumps out and rushes into her home through the alarmingly unlocked door. She's screaming out for Leigh, but nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to see. Blood was smeared and spattered throughout the home, on the walls, on objects, on tables, on cabinets, on carpets, on the floor, creating this trail that led from the hallway through the living room and out the back door. Vicky rushes past all of it, barreling into Leigh's room, where she does not find Leigh, but instead she finds Leigh's favorite blanket tossed on the floor with blood all around it.
Oh my God.
This was like her bobo, like her lovey. In sheer panic, Vicky rips open every single closet, cabinet, looks under every bed, piece of furniture that possibly could fit Leigh's 13-year-old little body underneath it, screaming out for Leigh, begging God to let her find her daughter hiding somewhere safe in the house. But Leigh was nowhere to be found. Vicky was frantic as she bolted to the landline and called 911 at approximately 9 a.m. Within literal minutes, Vicky and Leigh's house was swarming with police, investigators, detectives, first responders, anyone that you could possibly think of that could help in this situation. They wasted absolutely no time because Tupelo was a safe city.
Right.
A child abduction with blood left behind.
Huge fucking
This
alert.
is unheard of.
Right.
It's terrifying.
Dispatch everyone.
Exactly. Investigators shut down the house and secured the crime scene, looking into every single detail of the house. There were no signs of a forced entry, but clear signs of a struggle. In Leigh's bedroom, investigators discovered blood inside the room in various places, on the door, and even on the bathroom counter. But what's really interesting about this bathroom counter is it seems as if someone had like cleaned up after themselves, or tried to at least, because it wasn't like the pools and the spatter of blood that was throughout the house, but instead it was like pink, wet liquid that was over the entire counter in puddles, as if someone had poured water over it to try and clean or wash up the blood, which stood out as like really weird because there didn't seem to be any other attempts to clean up after themselves in the house. So why try and clean up this specific spot of blood, you know? Either way, they followed that blood that was trailed through the hallway, you know, living room, out the back door, throughout the house, only to find blood and blonde hairs stuck on the side of the door frame. Investigators brought in blood dogs, cadaver dogs, scent tracking dogs, all the dogs to try and follow a scent around the house outside to see where Leigh could have gone. Maybe, you know, she was taken on foot. But because of the insane storms from Hurricane Andrew and the tornadoes and the rain and the flooding, the dogs were unable to track anything.
Damn.
Meanwhile, investigators went with Vicky from room to room to see if there was anything that was missing or stolen. And it wasn't until she got to Leigh's room that they realized there actually were a few things missing. These items included Leigh's sleeping bag, a pair of her shoes, like tennis shoes, a pair of Leigh's underwear that had a matching bra that she had been given on her birthday just 1 week prior, a sleeping t-shirt, green silk boxers, and Leigh's seeing glasses. Then Vicky and police opened up Leigh's laundry hamper, and sitting on top was the matching bra to the underwear that was missing and Leigh's nightgown that she was wearing when Vicky left that morning, both with blood.
Oh my God.
And to give you a visual, because this is really important, the blood on these items of clothing did not indicate exactly what had happened to Leigh, but from what they could tell, she was wearing these clothes when she was initially attacked, and the blood had dripped down onto her gown. And what I mean by that is that they theorized that she had to have had, for these like drop patterns, a above the neck injury, which would also align with the blood and the hairs found on that door frame.
Yeah. Fuck.
Tupelo Police Chief Bart Aguirre believed that in a struggle, Leigh's head was either unintentionally or intentionally struck on the door frame as means to either incapacitate her or kill her.
Right. With that much blood, like, it's probably a severe head injury.
And that's another thing, dude. We don't know exactly how much blood.
Right. It could just be droplets.
Yeah, it could be droplets that are just like throughout. They did note like several pools, but like a big piece of this is that they're like, we need to find her before she's killed. So it's like maybe it wasn't enough to indicate that she died.
Okay.
But also they could be saying that because a lack of a body. Okay.
I'm with you.
The police chief, Bart, he thinks that she was struck on the head in the door frame as means to either incapacitate her or to kill her so that she could then be taken to a second location. So a second location was a part of this plan from the beginning, from what they can tell. But no matter what happened, investigators knew that it had just happened because, number one, the garage door light was on when Vicky pulled up at her house. So those are on for like what, 5 minutes at the most, whenever, you know, the little motor light. Max. Like 5 minutes is pushing it. I would say maybe 2.
Because I remember ours when she would shut the garage door, you had literally 45 seconds to get in that house before the big ass garage was dark as fuck.
Yeah. And you're running for your life.
Quick. Yeah, we would run in.
And then number 2, all of the blood, every single drop of blood in that house was fresh.
This
like,
just happened.
Some of it could have still been, this is an over exaggeration, but warm. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like there was no clotting, no scabbing, no skin being created on, you know, because, you know, it like kind of skins over and scabs over when it's just like free blood. That's how fresh it was. Meaning in the hour that Vicky left for work, got to work, heard the news about the storms, called her daughter twice, and drove back to the house. Someone had gotten Leigh to open the door, attacked her, grabbed some of her things, had her change clothes or took her clothes off of her, attempted to clean up the bathroom and only the bathroom, and then fled the house so quickly and so seamlessly that none of their very close by neighbors heard or saw anything that would alert them that something was wrong. This had to be someone that both Vicky and Leigh knew. Someone that Leigh felt safe enough to be around that she could open that door, which Vicky insists is the only way that her daughter would have ever opened the door in the first place. Plus, because she's really scared because it's raining. Like, she's not even going to go near the windows.
Right. And she's in her nightgown, so chances are she probably just fucking woke up.
Exactly.
Walked down, heard the door ringing or someone knocking on it.
Went over to it. And another thing is that this had to be someone that knew Vicky's work schedule. This person, at the very least, had been watching Vicky and Leigh. This was meticulous. This was well thought out and planned, and they were positive that this was not a robbery gone wrong. Leigh was the target because other than the obvious signs of a struggle, the house was in pretty much regular working condition for a mother and a daughter living there. Search parties of hundreds out of Tupelo and surrounding areas, volunteers, first responders, and law enforcement officials worked round the clock through the storms to search for Leigh or for anything that would lead them to her. While investigators went door to door interviewing every single neighbor of Vicky and Leigh's, crime scene investigators collected and sent off all of the samples of the blood in the house, and detectives began sitting down with every single close friend and family member of both Vicky and Leigh to learn every detail about their life. Leigh Maureen Occhi was born on August 21st, 1979 in Honolulu, Hawaii, to her parents Vicky Felton and Donald Occhi, both members of the U.S. Army. Vicky and Donald had met while they were posted in California and got married in 1977, had Leigh 2 years later, and then 2 years after that, they got a divorce. I think it was just like, it just wasn't working. You know, it's not that it was
bad blood.
It wasn't like hateful. It just like wasn't working. And though Vicky and Donald's marriage didn't work, they did a really good job at co-parenting Leigh together. For example, when Donald got relocated to Germany by the Army soon after their split, Vicky and Donald made sure that Leigh was in constant contact with her father and even went to go visit him for the summers in Germany.
Wow.
Yeah, and of course, like, Vicky had to take her over. Yeah. So, I mean, they were close enough to do that, you know? Like, that says a lot.
They weren't at each other's throats.
Right. It was around that same time that Donald had moved to Germany that Vicky left the military and moved to Tupelo with Leigh. And I think that's because that's where she was from and her mom lives there. Both of her parents live there, which is where she met her next husband, Barney Yarborough, Leigh's stepdad. Well, about a month before Leigh went missing, so July of 1992, Barney and Vicky had separated and he moved out of the home that they shared, the one that she was abducted from. Thus why this was the first time ever that Leigh was allowed to stay home alone. By all accounts, Leigh was considered to be like a very well-mannered, respectful, trustworthy child. She was just really shy too, like not too, not over the top, just really polite.
Well behaved.
She loved horses. She loved jewelry. She loved getting ready. She loved hanging out with her family and just typical things that a little shy 13-year-old girl likes to do, just girly things.
Yeah.
And so as police are learning this, as law enforcement officials are searching, interviewing, testing, and doing all the things, they're also sending out releases to the media begging for the public to come forward with any tips or leads, and they're sharing all this information about Leigh. She's, this is about her personality. They're trying to make her real to the community because they needed to find her. They blasted a missing child's poster all around Mississippi for Leigh with details such as the fact that she was 4'10", 95 pounds, blonde hair, hazel eyes, glasses that corrected her left eye because it was lazy, and strawberry birthmark on the base of her skull. These small little scratches and scars that she had on her right leg and both of her knees. And she just had to be wearing those silk boxers, green silk boxers, and sleeping shirt because those were the only things that were missing other than her shoes, glasses, and sleeping bag.
Right.
So like that's the only thing that they could think of.
And the sleeping bag is so eerie to me.
Yeah, sleeping bag's weird. Sleeping bag's
like
weird
for her in it.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, I do want to take a second to go back to the close friends and family interviews that were being conducted by the detectives, because obviously when a child goes missing in general, but especially with circumstances like this, like no signs of forced entry, you know, the child was at home alone, had to be someone that they would trust. The first people that investigators look at are the parents. And in this case, Leigh had 3 parents that investigators had to look into, starting with her mom, Vicky. So investigators wanted to know every single detail of the hours before Leigh's disappearance, or abduction. I don't know why I typed disappearance. Vicky explained that she woke up just before 7 a.m. to get ready for work, as she did pretty much every single workday. The only thing that was different about that morning compared to others was the fact that Leigh had slept with her in her bed that night because she was so terrified of the storms that were coming through. It was like thunderstorm after thunderstorm after thunderstorm. So Vicky wakes up, and immediately when she opens her eyes, she looks at her daughter's feet in her face. Classic.
I used to lay sideways across my parents, head on my dad, feet on my mom.
That's when
Belly.
my dad literally stopped sleeping in the bed because I would not get out of bed. I'm like, you got to go.
Yeah.
You cannot be here. My mom's like, yeah, you got to go. You're the one that snores. Get out. Take and stay. You can have her room. Thanks. Anyways, so she sits up, you know, she wakes up, she sees the feet, she sits up, and she sees that Leigh was sleeping upside down in the bed, which is pretty typical for her daughter on the nights that Vicky would snore really bad. So instead of waking her mom up, she just flips upside down so that way the snoring's not right in her ear.
I feel that so hard, and I have done that with my mother in hotel rooms.
So Vicky gets up and she hops into the shower, leaving Leigh in the bed. She turns on the radio, just like very low volume so she can listen to it as she's in there. And by the time Vicky gets out of the shower, you know, puts her towel around her, walks back into her room to start getting dressed and ready, Leigh was up and they had like a little chat. They were talking about like, what's the plans for the day? You're going with grandma and grandpa to go to your open house. Afterwards, they're going to take you to Taco Bell, which was our favorite restaurant. She was literally so pumped about it. And then she was like, hey, don't forget, you know, this is going to be your first time staying at home alone. What are the rules? Like, let's go over the ground rules again. So they're talking about that. She gets her clothes on and she runs outside to grab the morning paper before she starts doing her hair. And as she's doing her hair, she's like reading the paper, talking to Leigh, and she's rushing out the door by 7:40 a.m. Vicky then goes to work, gets to work. She grabs her boss's radio so that way she could have it on her desk to listen to the weather, and have her mom, who only lived 5 minutes away from her house, on standby to be able to go pick up Leigh, and or just like go to the house and be with her if a storm started coming through. And this is how Vicky learned about Hurricane Andrew sitting on top of them, causing several watches and warnings to go out all at once. So that's what prompted her to call Leigh, to be like, hey, are you okay? Just so you know. And then she was going to call her mom after she talked to Leigh to be like, hey, can you just like get ready, go get over there a little early and sit with her, or, you know, go pick her up and have her come to you while she's getting ready. I know she's excited to be by herself for the first time, but like not in these storms. She's going to be anxious. So this is when she calls. She gets no answer from Leigh, calls again, gets no answer, jumps in the car, rushes home. Now, another thing to note that I didn't mention before is right after or before, depending on the reporting, calling 911, Vicky actually calls her mother and then her ex, Barney. And her mother and Barney rush to the house to help look for Leigh and get there about the same time that police did. So the same day that they spoke with Vicky, they also were able to speak with Barney because he was there with her, who they had some major interest in because he was known to be pretty abusive on more than one occasion. And there were like talks about Leigh's home life, especially with him in it. So the fact that this happened just 1 month after their split made investigators wonder if he could be behind this as revenge for Vicky leaving him or kicking him out, pretty much. And it also doesn't help that he would have had a spare key to the house or known where one is. And if he didn't, well, he's someone that Leigh probably would have let into the house willingly. This was her stepdad up until like 30 days ago.
Yeah, right, exactly.
He also would have been one of the very few people that knew every detail about Vicky's schedule and knew the fact that Leigh wasn't going to be starting school until Monday, so there was a high chance she'd be left at home alone since she was 13 now. But Barney had a solid solid alibi. He was incredibly impacted by the kidnapping and abduction of Leigh and was beyond willing to do anything that he could to help, even voluntarily taking a polygraph test and being extremely cooperative, giving every single thing that police are asking for, because they're like, look, he's like, the faster you get me out of this, we'll be able to find her.
Move on, yeah.
And look for her. As for Donald, who is Leigh's biological father, he had been back in the States for only around 6 months at this point in time when she's abducted. Posted at Fort Myer in Virginia before Leigh went missing. But investigators were a little thrown off about the fact that he didn't immediately fly to Tupelo the second that his daughter was discovered to be abducted. Kidnapped. I mean, obviously, when you're in the military, it's not as easy as being like,
I gotta go.
Gotta go, TTYL, I'll let you know whenever I can come back. Like, I'll get something to cover my shifts. However, he didn't secure leave from the military to fly to Tupelo until September 4th, which was 8 days after his daughter was violently abducted from her home. But Donald was distraught. Nothing about his time and training in the military, literally he was in Operation Desert Storm, could have prepared him for how he would feel about his daughter's kidnapping. He was angry, he was protective, he was upset, he was frantic, and he was searching from dawn till dusk, doing his own investigations on the side, looking in every single nook and cranny, under every fallen branch, tree, big pile of brush in Tupelo.
Wow.
In fact, he temporarily moved to Tupelo to search for his daughter and help in the investigation. And so investigators, plus all of that, they were able to quickly clear him as a suspect because he had a rock solid military record alibi.
6 states away.
Yeah, and they had him like in the facility at this time, clocked in, clocked out. This is when he was in this room. This is when he was in this room. Well, as investigators are talking to Donald, which was the first place that he went when he put boots on the ground in Tupelo, he didn't even go to Vicky first or the house first. He went straight to police and said, who's the head investigator on my daughter's case? I need to talk with you right now. You need to tell me everything.
Yeah. Wow. Good for him.
So he gets there, and as he's sitting there talking to investigators, he witnesses them get a tip on his daughter's case. And it came from a McDonald's drive-through worker in Boonville. A lot of people do say it like Maryville. So it's like Boonville, Mississippi, which is a town just 40 minutes north of Leigh and Vicky's house in Tupelo. Now, the worker explained that he had served a man and a little girl who seemed to be, quote, distraught and, quote, dirty or unbathed in a blue pickup truck. But according to this worker, the little girl looked just like the pictures of 13-year-old Leigh that he had seen in the news. So calls 911. Investigators immediately began pursuing this lead and were quickly able to track down this truck, the man, and the little girl. But unfortunately, they were able to confirm the identity of this girl, and it was not Leigh. So that call came in on September 4th, right, with the tip. Well, 5 days later, on September 9th, a package arrives on the front door of Vicky and Leigh's house in Tupelo, addressed to Barney Yarborough, who doesn't live there anymore and hadn't lived there for over a month. Investigators actually were the ones who discovered this package. Now, I don't know if they were there when it was delivered because they were doing surveillance, or if they caught it in the mail and intercepted it before it was actually delivered on the front porch. I have no idea. Or they walked up and it was
on the front porch.
Right. I have no idea what happened. All I know is that investigators were the first people to come into contact with this. So they pick it up with gloves and other protective measures on, and they open this package and pull out what is inside. There was only one thing. No note. No ransom, nothing, just Leigh's glasses.
Oh my God.
This was sent from her attacker, and it had been postmarked, oddly enough, with 6 stamps from Boonville, Mississippi, the day before. So immediately, investigators in Tupelo call in the FBI. They're like, look, you got to assist on this. This is bigger than us. This is crazy. You've got to come in and assist. And they do. So the FBI takes this package and tests it with the glasses at the Mississippi State Crime Lab in Jackson, Mississippi for DNA and forensic, along with handwriting analysis for the address on the front. And though they didn't find much of anything, what they did discover would change the entire case. Which is where I'm going to pick up next week in part 2.
Suckers.
Yeah, you guys said one person said they liked it. I'm like, all right, we're doing a part 2.
One person's like, I love the part 2s. And Taylor's like, every week.
That part 2 is every single week. But the reason why I chose to do it for this one in addition to the fact that I was running out of time, is because I found the reason I was running out of time is because I fell down a rabbit hole from this case, and I need a little bit more time before I can bring you that piece in a well thought out, researched way.
I'm so sad that I know
unsolved.
It's unsolved.
Yeah. I know.
Well, thank you for that.
You're so welcome. Don't speculate too much because I'm going to bring us back to a lot of the things that we talked about in part 1 today next week. So my part next week's probably going to be a little longer, but I needed to give you the basics of the case so I could go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole with you next week.
Rabbit hole.
Yes. No, Morgan putting on her shoes in the more literally.
I took them off too. I just, if I'm on the ground, I feel like I have to have them on.
Yeah.
I'm on the couch. Okay.
Anyway.
Love you guys.
Thanks so much for joining us for season 5 of episode 2. We won't see you we will see you next Thursday, but we'll see you before then.
Tuesday
for, I think it's Taylor's mini/spiral.
It is Taylor's.
Yeah, it is. So you guys enjoy.
See you next week.
Love you. Bye. Oh, don't forget to go look for merch on our Instagram.
Merch is out.
It should be. If it's not out, it'll be out tomorrow at 8 a.m. Okay, love you. Bye.